Hey guys, how's it going? And happy Friday. I hope you all are doing good. I did a video recently that brought up a very, very important matter with the Hearing Protection Act. And in that video, I made it clear very, very quickly. Like it was literally the first thing I said that, dude, it is like totally awesome that the Hearing Protection Act is part of House Bill 1, otherwise known as the Big Beautiful Bill, right? But then I brought up an issue just because, look, there's still actually time to fix it, right? Hopefully. That in a number of states, quite a few actually, there's either going to be issues or possibly, most likely, it's going to basically make it where silencers, otherwise known as suppressors, will be banned in a lot of states. Now, in that video, it was very well received. A lot of people came over to the channel, so welcome if you're a new subscriber. It's good to be here. We've done about, 20-something hours of coverage on the Hearing Protection Act just in the past few days, and I enjoyed meeting so many new people and just seeing so many awesome people that have been around this channel for a long time. But I sat and thought about it a little further, and I want to talk about it more tonight, where we have a little bit more long form, where people can... you guys can talk amongst each other in the chat. I can maybe answer some questions tonight. And here's another thing I noticed. And, I've kind of known this for a long time, but then you think to yourself, well, see, the gun community, the 2A community, the 2A supporters are actually still very divided right now. Kind of always have been, but here's the deal with me. I spend so much time in these chats with you all. And my crowd that watches my channel, you guys are like really, really cool people and awesome. So you know what happens? You kind of get I don't know, you get a bias. If you're around a bunch of good people, you start to think everybody's good. And if you're around a bunch of smart people, you think everybody's smart. Now, this can work two different ways. You could be around a bunch of negative, nasty, ornery people. And then unfortunately, you start to think the whole world's ornery, right? Hang out with a bunch of dumb people, you might think everybody's dumb. I think you guys understand my compare and contrast analogy. So I'll move on. But here's the deal, man. I'm always surrounding myself by really cool people. And look at all these awesome people in the chat. Right now, I'm looking at all of your names. There's more of you than me. I do read all of the chats though, on replay. So I will see everything you said. I'll be honest, I wasn't able to look at all the chats on replay for the 12-hour and 6-hour stream. But you guys know exactly what I'm saying, right? So I do a video, and I was the first person that reported this on the internet that I know of. Now, there may have been other people doing it. It's just I hadn't heard about this. And I started to look at Michigan law compared to the Hearing Protection Act provision. This is Section 2 of the Hearing Protection Act. With this being a more long format stream, we can dig into this stuff a little deeper, right? And I said, dude, I think there might be a problem here. All right. And then I had a viewer reach out to me. If you're in the chat, chime in. And he's like, dude, I think this might make suppressors, silencers, illegal in Michigan. And I'm like, you know what? I was kind of thinking the same thing. So I made some calls, did some more research, and I'm like, oh, shoot, we might have a problem. But with this video getting lots of views for a while, I mean, for how small this channel is, a lot of people came in from outside the channel. And for everyone that came in from the outside, that's now part of this channel, lots of new subscribers have come in the last couple of days. Welcome. It's awesome to have you. We really like hanging out with all of you. And join in the chat if you're just shadow watching and you want to say hi to some good people. A lot of people have made good friends in these live streams over the years. But it also brought in a lot of other people that are in the gun community, in the 2A community. And boy, did I get some nasty comments. Now, my feelings aren't hurt by the comments at all. Dude, I've been doing this a long time. My videos have gotten millions and millions of views. Dude, I ran into all kinds on here, trust me. And it just reminded me, I'm like, there's a lot of nasty people out there. And you're all shaking your head like, yeah, obviously. But, man, the gun community is super, super divided on certain things. And also that a lot of people, I'll just state the obvious, clearly lack critical thinking skills. When you literally start your video out by saying, first and foremost, guys, the Hearing Protection Act passing through the House is awesome. and I want it to continue to pass. Like, you literally start your video saying that. And then you go on to say, but we have an issue, but there's a couple plausible fixes here. So while there's still time to fix this in the Senate, let's address this potential huge problem. And then it turns into what? So you don't want the Hearing Protection Act to pass? You want the NFA to stand? You hate the Second Amendment? This guy's a moron. And then you get millions of comments, like dozens and dozens of them that say stuff like, not millions, but dozens, maybe even more than that. You can ask Mateo, because he was going through taking out the trash. Because here's the rule on this channel, guys. Look, we believe in the First Amendment more than anybody does. I love the whole Bill of Rights. And Congress shall make no law, which means the government can't infringe your First Amendment, natural God-given right to freedom of speech. But people have property rights, and a lot of you either own a home, or you rent a home, or you live in a home. Even if you live with someone else, you most likely have your area that you call your own. And dude, if somebody's like in your house, they're in your channel, your personal channel, and you're not the government, and they want to act like a belligerent jerk idiot, it's perfectly appropriate. And I recommend it for your own mental health to say, get the heck out. I mean, that's just how that works. And really, people can disagree with this channel all they want, actually, on the merits of things. But as soon as someone goes into ad hominem attacks, and they're just out and out nasty, and it's only personal, Mateo shows them the door. Also, when people come in and just try to, like, literally just like you know, libel, just saying like, this guy lies, he made all this up, it's not true. Yeah, you can just get out. And there's a third category, whiners. People that just whine and whine and whine. If somebody's whining and complaining about how I do my videos, it's real simple. Leave the video because you don't like what I'm doing. Don't watch. And if you think I'm a fat POS, or you think I'm stupid, or you think I'm whatever you think I am, dude, why would you ever want to hang out with me again? Like, don't come back. But if you're such an idiot that you just want to say how much you hate me every day, but still come back for more, well, you're actually not allowed to come back. That's what I mean by whining. If somebody wants to complain and just say, hey, dude, like, I'm having a bad day, or I didn't really like this video too much, like, that's totally fine. But if somebody hates you that much, why would they keep coming back? But here's the thing, though. A lot of people do, and it's kind of really weird. But the way I look at it is, oh, well, you can be completely just a jerk and want to keep being a jerk, and you can do it elsewhere, but you can't do it here. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go over some of this stuff more in detail, because I did like a 14-minute video, and I'm like, guys, this could take me hours. And I was a bit discombobulated, but I wanted to get the breaking news out as soon as possible. And I had dozens of comments that are like, get to the point. It takes this guy too long to get to the point. Dude, the whole video, every word I said was the point, because I wanted the proper context. But here's the crazy part. Equal amount to those comments were people saying, we don't know what's going on. We need more context. So you're sitting there and 5 people are yelling at you, not enough context. 5 more people are yelling, too much context. And then there's like 10 people that are like, cool video, man. It really helped me. So we're going to get into more of that in just a few minutes. But before we do, I want to thank all of you for the many ways you help support the channel. Thank you to all of my YouTube channel members. You guys get a cool little badge behind your name. I see your names highlighted in my app that I use in green. You also get access to extra emojis as well as some bonus content. So I appreciate all of that. And you even get like free super chats every so often for being a channel member as well. Also, thank you to my Patreon supporters. I appreciate all of you, as well as my local supporters, which is a different site, censorship free. You can be a financial supporter to help keep the channel going. Because as you notice, there were no ad reads in this live stream tonight. Not sponsored by some big company, just you guys who are, you know, tipping, leaving super chats monthly. You know, you guys know what I'm saying. All the ways you guys help. So make sure you check that out as well. And you can join for free, though, on Locals. And I post awesome deals there. There's ways you can help support the channel totally free and all of that. And there's also a Cash App down in the description. And thank you to all of you who do that as well. And any super chats tonight, I will read for sure. And if we hit 5, we already have 1 right now. Make that 2. I will open up to a viewer Q&A for everybody, even for people's free chats that are in there. So thank you for all the kind words, guys. I really appreciate all of you. Adam, Jeffrey Harrison. I saw Matt Morrison here. What's happening, Matt? How you doing, man? Oh, people got pissed and they're like, 2A EDU, you lie. There's no way the current Hearing Protection Act has passed through the House could possibly ban silencers in certain states. I'm like, here's the thing. Here's the thing, okay? I didn't just get this off the cuff. Like right away, I was sitting there being like, I think I'm onto something here. But to be sure, dude, I'm not going to say people's names because some of these people literally help the channel totally free. If you guys want to know the truth, I know attorneys that charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour. But if the channel, and I don't say me because it's not me, it's the channel. When they talk to me, they know that there's good information getting out to hundreds, if not thousands of people. And then they appreciate the cause that this channel is fighting for, meaning all of you. And I'm just a conduit to all of it, right? I have some of the top lawyers that have literally argued in the Supreme Court. I have lawyers who have literally won circuit court decisions, federal district court. And I call people because I do know some people who like are really, really smart. And I don't need to cite the names of them. And in some cases I do. It just depends on the situation. But I had some really smart people, including a couple attorneys, look over this and they're like, dude, Houston, we have a problem. Before you know it, I was talking to Aiden Johnston. He's like the chief lobbyist, if you will, like upper echelon at the GOA. I got a personal phone call with him. Dude, this is a guy that literally called in live, or Brandon Herrera called him while he was live. Like he's got YouTubers with 10 million subs that call him. And he took a call from this small channel. So shout out to the GOA. And I talked to him about it. And he said, look, dude, like there's a problem here, but we can still fix it. And that was the whole point of my video that I put out earlier and the point of the video tonight. There's still ways this can be fixed. And we discussed a number of ways it can get fixed. And that's why I'm trying to first bring this to people's attention. Then it's going to be a call to action to yet again keep pressuring the Senate to A, have the Hearing Protection Act go through. Okay, GOA's told me it's imperative also that we get Section 3 of the Hearing Protection Act. I'm going to go through all this in a little bit. Okay, you need to call Senator Crapo, Senator Daines, and Senator Cruz. Those are the top three, probably in that order. Crapo literally being number one. Okay, Senator Crapo, C-R-A-P-O. You can call the switchboard and say Senator Crapo's office. You can Google it and find his contact information in 30 seconds. So we're going to need the Senate to try to work their magic, okay, with some of these pro 2A senators, right? We need the Section 3 added back in. There has to be some way. But here's the thing. We need to make this big political like uproar like we did with the House passing the Hearing Protection Act through Section 2 of it. And I'll show you what that means in just a minute here. This is a live stream that goes well over an hour into 2 hours normally, so there's time. And then make this an issue where the government period finds out about this situation, because there's possibly stuff, and I know you're going to be like, whoa, 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 but hold on. It'd be better if we could get the Senate to fix this, if they can, okay? If it can get past the Byrd rule, which clearly the GOA, who's, by the way, helping with all of this, they're basically one of the big architects of everything that's going on here that we're winning on, just so you know. I mean, that's no secret, but in case you didn't know, the GOA is very instrumental, and others. I'm not saying it's only them, but they're the ones that are really, really like working this language and just doing all this awesome stuff. And I will say that because it's pretty obvious at this point. So that's the best bet. But there's even ways maybe the ATF could help with this. Now you're thinking, whoa, whoa, whoa. But the new ATF director is like completely upside down different than the ones we've had like ever, actually, that I can even think of. Or acting director would be the correct term. Not yet confirmed, but the head honcho. I think that's fair enough to say. Actually, in many ways, and I don't want to speak for him because I don't know him personally, but research I've done, yeah, he actually kind of like hates the ATF. I think that's a fair thing to say, in my opinion, from seeing different things he said and done over the years. So maybe the ATF can do something. There might be stuff that can be done through the DOJ generally. But yeah, man, there is actually there is a problem that needs addressed. But I tried doing that video, and that's what I'm here to just reiterate tonight, that there are solutions. There's not a lot of time, of course. There's never time when it comes to this kind of stuff, but there's still probably enough time, and there's several different options, and very smart people are working on it. I'm actually working on stuff right now. I'm in contact with the GOA, okay, trying to help how I can. Now, I'm not a fancy lawyer. I'm not a registered lobbyist, but there's certain things that can be done to help pressure these senators, including even at the state level. And I'm not going to say exactly what I'm doing right now, not because of you guys not knowing, because I don't want the other side to maybe know what the plans are. But I'm talking to people on the state level in Michigan, and there's actually a wonderful, beautiful plan, okay, that will actually help assert some very good pressure. And I'm going to see if I can get that plan to come to fruition. There's not enough time, but I literally like skipped out on cutting like 3 or 4 lawns today to talk to a state legislator, a lawyer, different people. I'm working on all of this as hard as I can because, yes, Hearing Protection Act needs to pass. Even if it comes to the situation where they become banned in Michigan, my home state, and possibly others. We're saying possibly right now. More than likely, I would even go as far as to say. But if we have to look, to break down part of the NFA, it means if it means future sales of them or whatever the case would be, depending on the state, it could be different. If it means my state gets nixed from it altogether, I don't want that. But hey, it's what it has to be, and Michigan will have to figure it out, because no matter what, I'm going to reiterate it one more time, the Hearing Protection Act needs to pass, all right, as much of it as possible. We want the whole entire HR 404 Hearing Protection Act, really. It's not all going to get through the Byrd Rule. The Byrd Rule will just smoke some of these sections, and I've been told on good accord, like Section 4, which would be like just like perfect. That's what we need to just like instantly solve all this. Yeah, that ain't going to happen. I've been told by people on good accord that they're insiders. They know how this works. The Byrd Rule, it's going to be the Senate parliamentarian that decides that. Yeah, who's the parliamentarian? Yeah, we have parliament still. Yeah, I guess. You know what I mean? But some of these sections, there's no way they can get them through on budget reconciliation. And we need to repeal a large chunk of the NFA, a couple large chunks, meaning A, Hearing Protection Act, as full as it can be. Section 3 is doable. Section 3, and we're going to say probably right now, just because, the parliamentarian can, it's a whole complicated topic. It's like the whole shadow government thing that we all hate. But in people who are in the nose opinion, Section 3 can get added in, which will help with a lot of things. You start trying to add the whole rest of the Hearing Protection Act, which again would be perfect. It'll probably be rule the violates the Byrd Rule. It falls outside of budget reconciliation. Therefore, it won't be allowed through. No, the Senate can still screw with stuff in committees for the better or for the worse. So we still need to keep tons of pressure. Look, we had Rhino Fuds in the House and Ways and Means Committee, specifically the one representative that almost stopped it in its tracks, was trying their hardest to, allegedly colluding with a company that sells silencers, for gosh sakes, right? So it still can be a bumpy road in the Senate. These are unpredictable characters, and there's people lobbying on both sides of this, right? But we need to get as much of the Hearing Protection Act as possible. I'm being told Section 3 is critical. And then something that could address with some of these states. Does that make sense? And there's stuff that could be done in other branches of government, but a law repealing is always the best. It's way better than a court case. I know everyone loves their court cases. Like, oh, well, if it happens, we'll just sue. And that was another very popular comment I got. And it's like, look, yeah, of course we sue. And I know, like, with landmark decisions like Heller and Bruin and McDonald and all these, it's like, yeah, there is some optimism with litigating and getting it all the way up through the circuits. We have some very pro 2A circuits, some very anti 2A circuits, right? Look at the Ninth Circuit and you just want to say, what country are we in? Look at the Fifth Circuit, pretty darn based, right, on the contrast, but they don't even always get it right, and they're messing around right now with certain things too. So it's like, look, here's the problem though: court cases take a lot of money and a lot of time, and in most cases, somebody has to be that sacrificial lamb that's facing spending most of the rest of their life in prison to get standing on certain things where there's criminal penalties. And if you're just like, well, I could get in trouble if I was going to do it, so I'm going to sue, that normally doesn't get you too far in court. Usually somebody has to have some type of injury or some type of imminent injury. And there's a million ways this can all work. I'm not saying this is all one exact thing, but I will tell you, generally speaking, a court case, to win it all the way up at the top, it takes many years, many millions of dollars in most cases. And yeah, can ruin one or more people's lives in the process. So the best thing I've always said, and people may disagree, but the best thing is you get it right the first time and you have a good bill that'll hopefully become a good law, meaning in this case, laws repealing things. And man, that ounce of prevention can be a pound of cure, because it's so much better just to straighten it out than to try to sue and sue some more and sue again. Do you guys know what I'm saying? I did notice I got a couple super chats and super stickers right off the rip, so I definitely want to read those to thank you all who were generous tonight. I saw one right before I went live here. Irish Rover in Florida, channel member and a super sticker. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate the support, dude. Thank you. And I remember seeing you the other night, and we said a few words to each other, and I think you were on your way to work. Sorry it won't put the actual sticker itself on my screen, but that's the way the software works. But I do appreciate the $10, man. We also have a super chat from Richard Denny, $1.99. Says, 2A to you, thank you. Well, you're welcome, man. You don't need to thank me, but you know, it's one of those things where it's like, man, I'm putting my heart and soul into this crap, and we'll explain some of this together tonight. And we've already reached like our 5 threshold. It's not counting his super sticker towards the goal technically, but I'll count it. So once I get done going through here, yeah, we'll open it up for some questions before the stream's over. So hang around if you want to get some questions in, and if you want a priority answer, I will read those super chats. Not literally as they're coming in, but a lot quicker, right? John Crump News, what's happening, man? How you doing? Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, just enough context. Channel members on my other account. Yes, you have been a channel member for a long time on your other account, and I definitely appreciate all of your continued support of the channel. Thanks, man. You're going to think this is funny, dude. In my one stream, people were trying to turn me against you. I'm like, dude, my good friend John Crump, I doubt he said that, but even if he does disagree with me, I don't even remember what it was over now. I'm like, even if he does, oh, well. Like, dude, I've known this guy. It adds up, dude. Like, you think about it. In one way, it's like we just met each other. And I'm like, no, dude, I've known this dude for like over 5 years now. I'm like, dude, I'll call him up on the phone and say, what's up? So, whatever. But I just thought it was kind of funny. You know how people can be online. People got super crabby after we had this huge win in the United States House. I'm like, geez, oh, peace, people. I'm like super happy about the HPA passing in the House. And like we have an issue that needs to be looked at, and that's part of the context of this stream tonight. But it's like, dude, like, huge victory. Somebody said, I think you're a fan of the NFA. I'm like, you don't know me. Jeez, oh, Pete. John Crump News with another super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. He says, hearing Section 3, so Hearing Protection Act Section 3, will be added back in. Look, I agree. If enough people keep that pressure on, okay? We need to keep pressure, because here's the deal. There's some things that need to be added back in to help the whole country, okay? Section 3, other things. But also we just need to raise the temperature of this whole situation. So the more they keep hearing about Hearing Protection Act, you also need to be hounding the snot out of these Senate critters about the Short Act. The Short Act is huge. Might be a taller hill to climb than the HPA, which has already passed. Let's make this clear, through the lower chamber of Congress. Short Act might be a little tougher, but you know what that means? More public awareness, more people hounding the crap out of them. When I say hounding, I just mean you need to be repetitive. Keep going, keep talking to more people, keep getting more and more excited about all this. And to a point, and this is just how people work. And I was talking to a sitting representative today, and we were talking a little bit about this. And, Yeah, man, like when people make an issue of it, period, it just starts to become known around the Capitol halls. Once it's like, dude, this is the issue, then they all really start looking at each other different in those caucus meetings, okay? Then the lobbyists can come in with more fervor and strength. Now, we hate lobbyists to a point, but we like two-way lobbyists like GOA, and I know some of you guys are fans of some of the other groups. It's just I've been talking to GOA a lot about this exact topic. That's why I'm bringing them up right now. But we like those that like so here's the thing. Here's why we like GOA. Their goal is to put themselves under. Once they've repealed every last gun control law, then they'll close up shop because there'll be no need for them. And it's much the same philosophy as this channel. You guys have heard me so many times. I'm like, dude, like we shouldn't even have to have a channel called 2A EDU. We shouldn't even have, John Crump News in the capacity that it's in. Although I know John well enough, he'd be a content creator in other aspects. And he probably has more channels than I even know of because I just know how you are, John. But like, we might have other channels, but there shouldn't be a John Crump News. There shouldn't have to be a 2A EDU because we shouldn't even have to talk about it. So we like the lobbyists that are trying to lobby themselves out of a job, meaning getting all the gun control repealed, whether it's court victories, legislation, all of the above. And it gives them more power and more strength when they say, look, we have this many people behind them. Because I'll tell you what, when someone goes in there, and they don't have to be a registered lobbyist. I'm using lobbying very vague, but when you're lobbying, when you're bringing it to their attention, whether a true lobbyist or just someone that's going in there with a concern, if like say the real lobbyist comes in and is like, hey, look, we have all these people that are demanding this, and they're like, oh, really? Because no one's called our office at all. Nobody's written us. Nobody's come in for an office call. They're like, yeah, right. Get out of here, buddy. But when they come in and say, yeah, we have all these people demanding it, and then they go ask their staff and say, are they demanding? Yeah, they shut down our phone lines, sir. They shut down our phone lines, Senator, for several days. Dude, the 2A/gun community shut down phone lines in many instances in Washington, D.C. last week. You know that, right? Like for the last week or so. Once you start shutting down phone lines and they're like, we have a problem. Our phones are out of service now. People are getting busy signals. All kinds of weird stuff's happening. One time when I called, because it's all digital now, right? It's like I literally heard like this, like this weird, like, I can't really imitate it. I'm like, wow, is something like short circuiting? And then I learned from talking to some people, like, no, dude, like the phone lines were completely jamming. The phone system servers were like frozen. They were, yeah. And let me know if you guys heard the same thing. But if you didn't know that, I wanted to tell you that as a form of optimism. Well, maybe that does happen to go along with this is the first time any chamber of Congress has repealed. Now, look, the NFA's not been repealed. Neither have silencers. But one chamber, the House, has removed an NFA item. Yeah, like that hasn't happened in 91 years. Nothing ever gets removed from the NFA, and nothing has yet. It hasn't yet, but we have the best chance in our life coming up here soon, right? When you're jamming up their phone lines literally, where they're like, we need more IT, and they can't even get enough IT people to keep the phones up. Well, you saw what just happened, right? So that's awesome. Don't take any of this for granted, guys. Short Act. These are the main issues right now. Short Act still needs to go through. That would deregulate or remove short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns from the National Firearms Act. Extremely important. It's awesome. Then we get that. Then we can go after machine guns later. It doesn't mean we're forgetting about machine guns. That's the steepest hill to climb. It's actually like Mount Everest level, but like people have climbed Mount Everest though, right? So that's the things you have to think about. There might be a mountain more difficult to climb than Everest, and that's what it would be to remove machine guns, to be more fair. But somebody, if they haven't climbed it yet, will eventually. But you have to start somewhere, and this is a huge start. So Section 3 in the Hearing Protection Act is crucial in so many ways. Also, the Short Act is crucial. So that's something you're talking about when you're calling your senators, right? And then also, to make them aware of the fact that there's some states where probably and almost certainly, those states are exactly alike, many people will actually become criminalized if they make their own, or it'll be impossible for them to buy them at stores going forward with the suppressors. And that's a sad reality. But just because that's probably going to happen in several states, there's different categories of states, how this is going to affect some more than the others, does not mean that we're still not equally excited about cramming it all through, like getting all of it passed through. But if we get it passed through Congress, meaning repealing, when we say pass the law, in this case, we're repealing existing unconstitutional law, and that's a good thing. I want to make that clear because I hate that we have so many laws, and I don't want them to keep giving us more laws. But these laws actually repeal existing law, so these are the types of bills that we want. But yeah, just because there's an issue that needs taken care of with some very plausible possibilities to rectify, it should never be misconstrued as, oh, so you don't want the Hearing Protection Act to pass because it'll screw your state. Look, here's the real truth that I don't talk about much, but I will. I don't have a personal intrinsic dog in the fight at all. Not like on a personal item basis. I don't own any silencers, all right? So I'm not buying any right now in Michigan under the pursuant to the NFA. Never have bought any. And as far as I know, unless I totally change my mind for some reason, which I don't think I will. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s and I haven't changed it yet. I will never buy one as long as I have to buy a tax stamp and have it registered pursuant to the National Firearms Act. So it's not like, oh, geez, I won't be able to get mine anymore. Or, oh, look, I will be able to get, like, I don't own any at all. So that's the interesting thing about all this. But I think it's important to bring up this topic that, yes. Now, look, the Hearing Protection Act doesn't directly ban them, okay? But what happens is if the Hearing Protection Act passes the way it is right now, the Senate can fix this. There's possible other fixes if it can't. By the Hearing Protection Act passing into law, if it goes through the Senate, is signed by the president, the way it's worded right now, Section 2 is what's included. Section 2 of H.R. 404 is what has passed the House. So, again, things can change for the good. But if nothing changes and it passes just like it is, yeah, by it passing will cause the future purchase for many people, and in many cases, each state's a little different, and a number of states, like over a dozen really, to some different extents, will make it where people can no longer buy them. And many of the states, you can actually purchase them now, but you won't be able to. So it's not like literally, look, you can only have so many characters in your title on a YouTube video, okay? I don't know if you guys know that, but if you don't, there's some behind the scenes info. You can't type in like, well, look, the HPA bans, but doesn't actually ban, but causes them to be banned while not doing it in and of itself. But the state law isn't banning them in and of itself either. No, it's called conditional laws. Like there's a law in a state that says you can have this upon this condition. And right now, under the status quo, which I don't want, the status quo is the NFA. Silencers being on the NFA, that's the status quo. I don't want the status quo. I want them repealed. However, just to back up a minute, under the status quo, yeah, you can legally purchase a silencer in Michigan because the terms of the law require you to go through the NFA. Once silencers are off the NFA, look, not just in my opinion, but in some other very smart people's opinion I've been talking to. And I'm still getting another legal opinion on it this weekend, believe it or not. Someone who intrinsically knows Michigan law very well. Although I've already talked to a Michigan lawyer, I've talked to a lawyer over here, there. I've talked to several people. It's like, look, probably it would cause them to then become illegal. But there's an interpretation where maybe people that already have a tax stamp would be able to continue to buy more. Some people aren't sure. So there's still some things to work out, but this is like brand new stuff. And you have to look at attorney general's opinions. You have to look and see if there's any case law. You have to read the bill right on its face. And there is an attorney general's opinion in Michigan by Attorney General Bill Schuette in 2011 that pertains to this topic. But even after reading the attorney general's opinion, it's still highly likely that it would be illegal to purchase a silencer for the first time in Michigan if the Hearing Protection Act passes. But one more time, there are still plausible, possible, and even in some cases probable solutions that'll be able to take care of it. Richard Denny with another super chat. Thanks, Richard. He says, let's go, 2A EDU. Yeah, let's go, guys. I'm in a good mood tonight because I saw some weird negativity in the gun community on my recent video. But like now I see all of you hanging out and I'm like, no. There's good people. This is why I hang out with these guys. You know what I mean? Dale, how you doing, man? Member for 48 months. Wow, that's a long time, dude. Wow. Thank you for all that support. He says, good to see some progress finally. I know, dude. And you live in Michigan too. Okay. In a certain way, it could be construed as this could kind of screw us. Maybe. I hope not. People are working on solutions right now. But like, dude, we're still both like excited, right? Heck yeah, man. So, you know what's interesting is I see people living in all these states out here. What's up, Jeffrey Harrison? How you doing, man? People live in all these states. And look, we are... Yeah, that is true, Mateo. He did get to boot some. I'm talking nasty people. Wow. You know, just people that get in there. It's like, dude, what is whatever have to do with any of this? It's just. But I get a lot of comments from people that seem to be confused. They're like, well, this is an issue. This is Michigan banning silencers if the HPA goes through, not the HPA. Well, look. And it's not fair to directly say one bans the other, actually. They're called conditional laws. Now, here's what's weird about Michigan. You have short-barreled rifles and shotguns. They're also an NFA item right now, and that needs repealed. That's why we need to hound the Senate for the Short Act. But that basically says, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but I am familiar with the statute. It says you can lawfully own a short-barreled rifle in Michigan as long as you complying with federal law. Now, that's a totally different way to word things, right? Like, okay, so if they're deregulated, removed from the NFA, meaning like they're just legal, period. Now, illegal if you're allowed to own a gun. Allowed. I hate that. But I'm talking strictly how the government would look at it. Dude, if they're just repealed, if you can own a regular rifle, you could own a short-barreled rifle. That's what would happen is if it was removed from the NFA. So as far as I know, if that happens, Michigan would be fine. But here's the weird thing. They treat like bombs and bombshells and all this. I'll read it in 1 second. But particularly NFA items, they treat machine guns and silencers. They treat them different than they do SBRs, SBSs, and other NFA items, which is totally bonkers. But it's because we have laws going back from they were originating in 1931. They've amended them several times. But probably not in the last, I know they haven't amended this Michigan law, so it's before 2003 or so, because the department that they're literally listing in this bill doesn't even do tax stamps anymore. So that shows you how archaic these laws are. But hey, they still hold full force and effect of law, right? But this actually is different. When you look at machine guns and silencers in Michigan, now they list very specific criteria. Now, it was actually so vague in this original bill. So this is where some people are like, yeah, by your reading of this, it'd be impossible to even own it. And I said, look, guys, I know it is technically by the letter of the words of this law, impossible for anyone to have bought a silencer since 2003 or 4. But I also was very careful in that video. I said, but it's been construed as just having the tax stamps good enough, and that would follow law. Now, here's the thing. For all the people, pardon my French, bitching like little girls, okay? Like little female dog girls, whiners. There's a lot of adult men that whine. It's like, don't whine. Do something about it. Get pissed. That's totally different. But whining, 2A EDU. You're giving too much detail. I don't have the attention span. I don't have the IQ. I can't stay focused long enough to actually have real adult conversations. Dude, tons of comments like that. I knew they couldn't take too much, so all I said is, it's been construed. Now, I could have gone right in there and said, guys, but look, even though this on its face is impossible to comply with, we'll just say it's construed as having the tax stamp is good enough. And that's all I wanted to put in that video, because people complained it was too long anyways. But then for a bunch of people said it was too short and I didn't give enough detail. This is a longer stream. But I could have taken that 14-minute video and made it 30 minutes and said, well, here's the thing. Some people in Michigan became aware in 2011. Yeah, there's a lot of dumb people in Michigan. It took them about 8 years to realize, well, you can't actually comply with this law because it's literally impossible, because a person licensed by the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States or the Secretary's delegate, well, the Secretary hasn't licensed anybody in so long, it's not even funny. Well, it took them a little while, but about 8 years after this law was impossible to comply with, and it was kind of almost looked at that Michigan had a de facto silencer ban, somebody wrote the Attorney General on September 2nd. Okay. Honorable Rick Jones, state senator, the capital, Lansing, Michigan, and he wrote, Bill Schuette. His son's a current state representative right now, if you want a little piece of trivia. He wrote an attorney general's opinion talking about what it would take to comply with Michigan law and what his opinion of whether silences were banned or not. And it's long. And if I were to read all of it, it would probably take me an hour to go through all of it. I'm not going to do that tonight, but I will spend a couple minutes on it. But yeah, there is a little more to the story that I knew about the whole time. That's why I said, guys, this is going to be an ongoing process. I could only cram so much in this video. It would take hours for me to explain it all. I wanted to add all the proper context, make it like just completely clear to everybody that even though I had alerted the public of a problem, but like I'm still like super happy and fully support the Hearing Protection Act passing through both chambers of Congress, getting signed by the president. And I took so long explaining all that, some people got mad because it took me too long, but then some people didn't listen to a word I said and said, so this guy wants to keep them on the NFA? Yeah, there's some real idiots out there. But once you read this Attorney General's opinion, once I read it, there's still probably a problem in Michigan. So, person shall not manufacture, sell, offer for sale, or possess any of the following. Now, this is how many states work. In fact, as far as I know, most states. Okay? Thank you for all the comments, guys. You guys are awesome in the chat tonight. I appreciate all of you. And I do skim and speed read as it goes on, okay? So if you guys are talking to me, I actually see it. But I can't stop and read all of them because there's more of you guys than me. There's like 100 people in here right now, and you guys get it, right? I'm kind of outnumbered, but I'm happy. I like being outnumbered by good people like this. But look, most laws are written kind of backwards. It just starts off by saying a person shall not manufacture, sell, offer for sale, or possess any of the following. So if you only read that far, wait a minute. So if the average, not you guys, just the average like YouTube viewer out there, if it was them, they would have just read the first part. They'd read the first sentence and be like, oh my gosh, this stuff's all banned. Well, it always starts off saying it's all banned. And then it tells you what's not allowed. And then there's always the exceptions. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you're not allowed to have a silencer whatsoever unless, okay, here's the exceptions. In Section C. Now, there's some that don't really apply to you guys, but I'll read them all. Subsection 1 does not apply to any of the following. A self-defense spray or foam device as defined by section whatever. Well, that doesn't apply to silencers. Okay. A person manufacturing firearms, explosives, or munitions of war by virtue of a contract with a department of the government of the United States. Well, you guys know that because, like, of course, like the government can always have everything we're not allowed to have. And that's why we need to change that. And that's why we want the Hearing Protection Act to pass the Senate, short act, and get us more on a level playing field, right? Now, this is the one that would apply to most regular people. And look, if you're a defense contractor, you don't need my video to tell you what you're allowed to do. You've got ATF agents swarming your factory 24/7 to look for compliance and whatever. So here's what's germane to regular people. C, a person licensed by the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States or the Secretary's delegate to manufacture, sell, or possess a machine gun or a device, weapon, cartridge, container, or I'm going to pronounce it how I want to, contrivance. People are like, it's contrivance. Come on now. I usually say carbine. Like, I like the M1 carbine. A lot of my friends say M1 carbine. Dude, I have never one time in my life. Have you guys done this? I've never once. Okay? Because a lot of my southern friends tend to pronounce their vowels different than my northern friends. It's just the way it is. You guys think we talk funny. We might think you talk funny, but I actually love the southern accent. And that's one of my favorite things when I go down to the south and hang out with y'all, right? But contrivance, it's contrivance to a edu, contrivance. And they're like spelling it all out like phonetically, like, dude, this is where we're at right now. Like, dude's trying to run a small landscaping business, forgoing business. I'll probably go broke trying. And I'm out there like sounding the alarm on this. And I don't know if he's watching the channel because he's a friend of the channel, but I'm on the phone with like a big league attorney talking to him while there's like machine noise in the background because I'm like on a job site. And then I'm talking to like, it's like, look. And these people literally want to go off and say, it is not contrivance, it's contrivance. Contrivance. I'm like, TRY. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, that's the most important thing to be fighting about. You know what I mean? That's why I put that in the title. I realize how divided we are. Like, we are so divided right now. It's not even funny. But it's actually not a surprise either. Because here's the thing, dude. There's good people out there. There's bad people out there. There's nice people. There's mean people. There's cool people. There's people you never want to hang out with. And guess what? People from all sides of all of that. Some of them like guns. Some of them hate guns. And there's just nasty people that love guns and love silencers and whatever. I mean, it's just the way it is. And it always will be. So that's your exceptions right there. Now, there was vague, like, okay, described in subsection 1, which is here. Notice in the exceptions, it doesn't necessarily say. Now, it names machine guns specifically. Okay. Or a device, weapon, cartridge, container, or contrivance described in subsection 1. Now, it doesn't actually use the word silencer in there. So there was some ambiguity in Michigan law there. Now, obviously, if you want to read the whole Attorney General's opinion, you'll find out that he finds that, yes, it does actually fall into these categories. And then he tells you what you have to do to legally own it. Now, real quick, how many of you guys know what an AG's opinion is and know why it actually matters here? Because, and I'll give you guys 2 seconds to answer. If not, I'll literally spend time because this is the 2A EDU channel. And no, you don't have to be a lawyer in one of these lawyer channels to actually have knowledge. So I can tell you guys what an AG's opinion is if it helps you. Because at one time I heard it and I'm like, dude, who cares what his opinion is? This is my opinion. This is your opinion. Well, an AG's opinion has specific legal effect. Okay? Specific legal effect. And this is an official AG's opinion. This serves, I think, for lack of a better word, as a legal document. Now, here's the thing. I would know a big league lawyer, one with, oh my gosh, let me see here because I'm going to share someone else's video for just a minute here, in a few minutes. Somebody with 337,000 subscribers. Now, look, I broke it, okay? I broke this news. I was the first person that I know of. Now, someone else may have, but when I say I broke it, I didn't copy off of anybody. I broke this story, like I said, like early today, late last night, 9 p.m. A lot of my comments came in early today. Now there's a big lawyer saying breaking Fed law causes 16 states to ban suppressors. Hearing Protection Act triggers felonies in possible states. I remember my friend Threaded for My Pleasure was sitting there in my live stream the other night because I was saying something that none of the big 2A channels were saying at the time. See, a lot of people were saying, nope, this doesn't apply. The Bird rule could never apply. It doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, dude, hold on a minute. The GOA put in a backup in case the Bird rule does swat some of this down. Nope, the big YouTuber said we're good to go. It's already passed. No, we couldn't have already passed it because we're watching the vote live. We watched every minute of the whole rules committee. all this crap on the house floor. But I digress. I'm like, no, I'm right on this one. And I'm not saying the bird rule will swat it down. In fact, I hope it won't. But I said it's a major concern. Okay. Then I talked to the people at the GOA, and they're like, yeah, duh, the bird rule is a major concern. That's the biggest concern we have. And my friend Threaded for My Pleasure is like, no, dude, you've been right on a lot of things before anybody else. I'm going to stick with you, man. And, and I know a lot of you guys think that way. Well, a lot of people said, 2A Edu, you're full of crap. This is a nothing burger. You're fear-mongering. You know why? And again, not you guys, obviously, because we live among so many stupid sheep that have to be herded in, and they have to have this appeal to authority. And a YouTuber with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers, or one that's a lawyer or wears a badge in some way, or has some type of appeal to authority, they have to say it before it could possibly be true. And I just think it's kind of funny. And I'm venting with you guys, not to you. I'm not berating anybody that's here right now, obviously. The people that accuse me of such things and hate me, they're probably gone, because why would they be here if they hate me so much? But I think it's funny. Now we've got a big YouTuber, and before you know it, we're going to have all the big YouTubers saying, whoa, look, from my top secret sources, I just found out this. Really, they watched the 2A EDU video because they all subscribe to this channel, but they'll contrive it. We'll say it in that way just to get some people happy. They'll contrive it to where they're like, my super duper secret top secret sources that you have to have millions of YouTube subs whispered in my ear and told me they watched the 2A EDU videos, what they did, but that's fine because I don't break 99.9% of the news, but sometimes I do. So we'll get into that lawyer's video in 1 minute. 2A EDU, this is clickbait. This doesn't ban anything. Oh, well, it actually might. Actually, it probably will. And in some states, it'll most definitely will. But that's why we need to fix it. And that's why I told you guys as soon as I figured it out. You know what I mean? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's making this up. This couldn't possibly do anything. And then they'll say, doesn't matter. Federal law is supreme. When they pass this law, look, people don't even know what the Hearing Protection Act does. The Hearing Protection Act removes language. By removing language, this is Section 2, which has been passed right now. If what goes through all the way through the Senate and signed by the president goes through, it's removing language. That's what you do when you repeal. Right now, we don't have language in the Hearing Protection Act. That's my whole point, for the government to be able to exercise its supremacy clause and say states shall not do this, this, and this. That was the whole point of my video. We need to get the Senate to add more to this, as much as that will pass the bird rule, which I've known the whole time was an issue with many sections of the Hearing Protection Act, the full one. That's why we're not going to get it all. And now the bigger YouTubers are saying that it's an issue. Now it's an issue, but it's always been an issue, clearly, from the very beginning. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the federal law says something that's supreme. Well, hold on a minute, though. Yes and no, and it totally depends what you're talking about, right? Go back to the Civil Rights Act. The federal government forced integration into the schools. Yeah. And you had governors, mayors, and some in almost semi-violent standoffs, particularly in the South, where schools were more segregated at that time, and they wanted to stay that way in many states, in many hometowns. You had standoff where National Guard had to come in to escort colored students in to an all-white school. So yeah, the government does actually sometimes exercise that authority of the Constitution, and when there's a conflict between states' laws or the state and government law, they can come in and reign supreme. But here's the difference. That's when the law says, all states shall integrate. All states shall not impose any tax stamp or extra regulation on silencers. You'd have to have that affirmative verbiage in the federal law. I'll give you an example. In some states, you can open carry a firearm. Michigan would be one of them. They've been trying to go after that lately, but generally speaking, no legal advice, guys. In most places, many places, we'll just say, you can open carry in Michigan. All right. And a lot of people get that confused. I'm heading somewhere with this. I'm going to try to tie it all together where it makes sense. And then I'll see if anyone wants to know what an AG's opinion is. I've given you guys time because I hadn't seen any replies when I looked last. So people say, well, we have a concealed carry law in Michigan. I'm like, no, we don't. Well, yeah, we do. We're allowed to conceal carry. So there's a concealed carry law that says you are allowed to conceal carry. I'm like, no, there's not. Because that's not the way laws work. You're allowed to do anything and everything unless there's a law that prohibits it or restricts it. Now, I'm talking as a matter of law, not as a matter of rights, because our rights are getting trampled on constantly. I don't agree with all the laws we have. I agree with almost none of the laws we have. But I'm just sticking within the legal context because this is all legalities. No, you don't have a law that says you're allowed to open carry in Michigan. There's just no law that prohibits it. So basically, the Hearing Protection Act, if it passes Section 2, hopefully 3 as well, it won't say, we hereby do declare that silencers are not legal and that they're not registered under the NFA anymore. No, that's not the wording of the Hearing Protection Act, you see. It just removes the wording of the hearing of the silencer references in the National Firearms Act. So by removing it, right, unregulates it, takes it out of the law, and then it becomes legal by de facto. Because since it's not illegal, then it becomes legal. Does that make sense? The other way to word it is everything's legal unless it's illegal. That's the framework of how all laws work, actually. You're allowed to do it until you're told you're not. And then you still have free will to do whatever you want. What I mean by allowed is you can face repercussions for your actions if you're caught and or you're convicted. So no, that whole like supremacy clause thing, look, I'll give you another example that a lot of you may know about. There was an assault weapons ban in the United States from 1994 to 2004. Is there an AWB nationwide right now? You may be asking yourself. No, there's not. And that's awesome that there's not. Now, there wasn't a new law passed that said, we therefore hereby do declare, because that's how they do it in all the movies, but none of the laws are actually worded that way at all. I'm just saying that there is no AWB anymore, and there's no AWB because we passed a law that said there's not. No, that's not what happened. The law just sunset, and the AWB that people had to live under for 10 years went away. So since it went away, there was no more AWB. But how come we still have states that are still enforcing virtually the same letter of the United States AWB that sunset 20 years ago? They're still enforcing it today. So by the people's logic that say by removing, just think about this, by removing silencers from the NFA would automatically just repeal all the anti-silencer laws in the many states, they haven't thought of any analogies, including the one I just gave, because simply by the federal assault weapons ban going away, being sunset, repealed by sunset, meaning they're going to try it 10 years. If it didn't get renewed, it went away. By the federal AWB going away, it did not automatically strike all of the states' AWBs. In fact, states are still living under, you can't have a pistol grip, you can't have a shoulder thing that goes up, some can't have threaded barrels at all, some can't have flash hiders, but if they argue it's a compensator, they can. Look, all this stuff that's carryover from the 94 to 2004 era AWB is still going on in states. So I have no idea why so many people are going off saying, well, as soon as this is repealed from the NFA, it'll immediately get rid of all the state laws that regulate it. No, it won't. That's never been the way that works. Now, there are certain laws that aren't germane here at all, like Civil Rights Act. States shall not. Now, here's the crazy part, and this is awesome if this could get in. But here's the reality of things. HR 404 actually has that provision in it. It literally does. It has that provision to take care of all this. Look, Section 4, preemption of certain state laws in relationship to firearm silencers. So this basically shows you that I'm not making this up. Clearly Andrew Clyde agrees with me. Who wrote the dang thing? Because he knew this was an issue, or he wouldn't have written Section 4 in. Now, HR 404 is written here as a standalone bill, but here's the problem. You can't get this whole entire bill through the narrow scope of budget reconciliation because you have to follow this Senator Byrd rule that came in effect in the mid 80s, 85. I think they amended it again in 86, maybe in 90 again. But this came from the mid 80s from Senator K, followed by, and then ends in K, him. That's who he is. You go look up his history. I'm being dead serious. But look, clearly just by removing something from the NFA doesn't instantly nullify state laws. Unfortunately, in this case. Now, there are times where you want it to work this way because you don't want the federal government to be able to do one thing and every state has to follow exactly in its path because, yeah, we should have states' powers. That's what the 10th Amendment's about, the powers. The federal government would have very few powers. The states would have more than them, but the ultimate power is supposed to be in we the people. So I think a lot of this, and this is why I'm getting a little spicy, ripping on idiots in the comment section, okay? It's all right. I recommend being a little black-pilled sometimes because there's, for every awesome person there is, you guys literally watching right now, there's some real jerks out there. And if somebody just doesn't understand, look, I'll explain. This is like the whole purpose of this channel is to explain, be like, 2A EDU, there's a supremacy clause of the Constitution. So as soon as these are repealed from the NFA, that instantly nullifies every state law there ever was. And I'm like, that's not... Here's the problem. Yes, there's a supremacy clause. And when the United States government comes in and says all states shall do this, they generally do it. Now, they don't always, though. We had a civil war in this country, right? So, except for when they don't, states generally fall in line because they bribed them all with federal grant money and blah, 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 blah. But not always. The federal government is bribing every state in the country to pass red flag laws under the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and many states have resisted that federal funding and stood strong for the Second Amendment. Michigan did not. But hats off to you all that live in states that have stood up against that federal law and said, we won't take your bribe. We won't take your money. Dude, I really appreciate you guys that are able to do that. Look, I fought like hell. I fought as hard as anyone in my state of Michigan to stop this crap, and I wasn't good enough at it. All of us that fought for it clearly weren't good enough because we lost. We lost our ass big time in the last term. So look, I'll admit when I get one on the chin, I was doing videos in the middle of the night trying to raise awareness to stop this crap, and I got my butt whipped, and so did all of us living in Michigan. A bunch of libtards took us to school and whipped us. I'll admit that right now. And I'll also admit, and not just admit, but like congratulate all of you that have been able to turn this crap around in your states and do an awesome job. And what reminds me of that is my good friend Clovertack, who he was streaming years ago now, trying to repeal some of the draconian BS in Texas. And guess what? Him and his and all of y'all's in Texas efforts paid off, and you guys actually got what you were looking for. And like, super congratulations to you. That's awesome. See, here's how this works, man. Like, if some states like winning and doing awesome on the 2A, that makes me smile because there's good people living in that state that don't have to suffer as much. But when people are living in crappy states and they're still awesome people and they're true 2A patriots and they're fighting their butts off, digging in, dude, I have a lot of respect for people like that. And sometimes you do get your butt whipped. It doesn't mean I don't respect my efforts or all of your efforts in Michigan. Please don't misconstrue. I respect the hell out of all of you who tried to fight. But we got our butts whipped for 2 years straight in Michigan with gun control, literally. And here's the crazy part. I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't even think about saying, hey, Clovertack, you're a real piece of crap. Now, I might get in a fight with him, but, not over this. No, I like Clover. He's a good dude. You should see how he dresses in real life, man. He actually has some of that cool merch available, right, Clovertack? So check out the Clovertack channel. You see this guy? He's dressed to impress. Like, you should just literally quit your YouTube channel and become a fashion model and have millions of subscribers. Like, no, don't quit your channel, dude. Don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? Clover's a cool guy. I've met him in real life several times, hung out. And I'll give him a hard time. Don't cut him too much slack, guys. It sounds like I'm giving this guy high praise. He's actually not as nice as I am, okay? But I still like him for some reason. But no, man, I would never go to my friend Clover Tech and be like, "You SOB, I'm pissed and I hate you and we're gonna have to fight." Why? Now, if I want to fight over the shirt he's wearing, that's totally fine and he'll understand. Or his $200 tennis shoes, that'd be fine too. But no, dude, I want to fight because you guys won on the state level in Texas and I lost. I wouldn't even think about that, man. I wouldn't even think about it at all. And I've also never, ever, ever called out the California people and been like, "You all suck because you guys have like way more gun control than any state does." I wouldn't even consider doing that either. But you know what was crazy? And you can read them. They're in the comment section right now. Tons of them in that recent video I did last night where people are like, "That's your fault. Move to a decent state. You're the idiot for still living there. You get what you deserve." I'm like, really? Like, dude, there's people advocating for us to get back as close to the Second Amendment as possible in all 50 states. You've got troopers and people that are literally badasses and trying to make a difference in all 50 states. So literally, you'd have to be a complete moron to try to get rid of people that are more articulate than you. They're smarter than you. They're making things change better in every way, but they don't live in your state. You'd be a moron to kick them off of your team. And there is a lot of morons out there. There literally are. Sucks to be you two, AEDU. You get what you deserve. Oh, really? Really? What the heck are you doing besides being mean in my comment section is what I would ask those people, but I don't have the time to answer all the comments. But anyways, congratulations on your efforts where you guys were repealing gun control in the state of Texas, Clover, and thank you for the super chat. He says goal reached. So that means we are going to have some viewer Q&A for sure tonight in a little bit here. He says, and if that wording was in there, it could not be done through reconciliation. Just a thought. Yep. That's the crossroads right now. That's the crossroads. If you put the, see, that's the thing, right? Some people knew that they might need to add a little more to the bill. You know what I'm saying? To make sure that they don't unintentionally or accidentally criminalize silencers for all people in certain states by making silencers more accessible. I know that sounds like the stupidest thing ever, but I promise you, there's a possibility and even a probability in many states, but there's a bunch of ideas for fixes. And I'm going to be doing more videos on that as I learn of, some more developments of some of these plans. I'll just leave it at that for now. But yeah, clearly there's issues. But here's the problem. HR 404, just the whole bill getting passed through the regular method, not through budget reconciliation. This ain't going to pass right now. Don't misconstrue that because people misconstrue everything nowadays. Only whiners and sissies do, really. But look, that doesn't mean I don't want it to pass. When you say this ain't going to happen, oh, that's the other thing. I'm like, guys, look, that ain't going to happen. Oh, so you don't want it to happen? No. I want this bill to go through. That's what I really want. That's what we all want. It ain't going to happen right now. I'm not going to say never, but it ain't going to happen right now. This goes through the regular means. It could pass the House. It could pass the House. I don't want to say like that, but assuming it did, don't ever do that because there's lots of rhinos. But it could pass the House, and there's actually a probability it could. This whole bill, this whole 404, Hearing Protection Act, all the sections. It'll go to the Senate, and they'll do a procedural filibuster. They won't be able to invoke cloture on debate, and they will not be able to get the bill to a floor vote because there are not 60 senators to break a filibuster. There is zero chance that you're going to have like 4 or 5 Democrats or whatever it would take to come over with the Republicans to repeal silencers from the NFA and then also have every single Republican senator, including the several and many rhinos that are in the Senate. I mean, think about it. We had 19 senators break the filibuster with the Democrats to pass the so-called Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So if you're looking at it the other way, very plausible. It's very plausible that Republicans will break over to the other side to pass something through the Senate. We just saw that happen in 2022. But the other way around has never happened in the history of, not in my life. Like literally, you've never seen Democrats come over to break their own party's filibuster to repeal gun control. And I would argue you Never will. Not in our lifetime. Now, get a supermajority in the Senate? Sure. Win court cases? Sure. There's stuff that can happen to slowly chip away, but the House thought the best they could do is to get Section 2 through. Now, I'm hearing from a lot of people that are in the know on this that there's a very good chance of getting Section 3 of the Hearing Protection Act in. That makes it way, 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 way better. And then I was talking to the person last night, and I'm like, yeah, but we need Section 4. Section 4 is the preemption. That'll fix all this we're talking about. He's like, I know, but that won't happen. That will not get through the Senate parliamentarian under the Byrd rule. I said, was there a chance it would happen? And they're like, yeah, probably not. No. Because the Byrd rule makes it very, very specific that you're only going to be able to change the things that are dollars and cents, just to put it bluntly, rather than just generic policy change. See? So that's why it is what it is. Logan Barnett with a super chat. Well, thank you, Logan. I appreciate it, man. He said, hey, 2AEDU. I saw the title and just got in. What's going on? Are lawmakers changing the HPA to limit it in certain states? Thanks for the stream. Yeah, I know you're just joining live, so hang out with everyone while they're live. You're probably going to want to go back and rewatch because I can't repeat everything I've said for an hour. No, they're not. Unintentionally or unintendedly, just by passing the HPA that passed the House, if it gets all the way through the Senate, it will most likely in some cases and almost certainly in other cases, make it unlawful for people either to own them at all, suppressors in their state, or purchase them going forward. There's little tweaks and caveats in each state. You know what I'm saying? So, and you're welcome, man. And I hope you understand what I'm saying. I think I've done a decent job, considering how this is long-form content on these live streams. I think I've unpacked it in a pretty logical order with tons of info tonight, and I just couldn't repeat it all, man. Martin Edgar with a super chat, member super chat for 4 months. See, this is what I'm talking about, guys. If you become a channel member, you get these free super chats from time to time. And I appreciate it, Martin. He says, glad the Dems didn't think about AWB in Michigan. No, dude, they did think about it. They did think about it, actually. Big time. It's just they knew it was going a little bit too far. And that's where in some cases, especially on the state level, calling your Democrat rep and senator and telling them you're against the gun control that they're wanting to pass, you're never going to get to change their mind. They'll always vote for it, like what they're going to vote for. But here's where it can help. Some of them got cold feet because they're like, yeah, I'm in a moderate district. If we go as far as an AWB right now in Michigan, yeah, we're going to most certainly flip this all to Republicans. They don't want that. So that's where there is a little there, especially for calling like your state rep. Your United States Senator, I'll tell you what, guys, like Alyssa Slotkin and Gary Peters in Michigan, I'm going to tell you to do it just because you could be part of the process, but I'll be honest with you. I always want to be honest with you guys. Look, you are not going to get senator. This is United States senators right now I'm talking about. Slotkin or Peters, they are not going to vote for the Hearing Protection Act. No matter how many times you call them, it won't work. But as Martin reminded me of, a Democrat state rep in a swing district, you call them enough, and enough people call them saying no more gun control, they'll say, dude, I can't go as far as an AWB right now. I want to ban all guns, but I got to get reelected no matter what. You know what I'm saying? And then the majority leaders and the leadership and all this that are in the back room, they're going to say stuff like, yeah, we have 3 risky seats. We're likely to lose those seats if we do an AWB. So they won't even put the bill up at all because they don't want to force what's called these vulnerable members, right, to be up for a tough reelection. And trust me, they classify them. Look at my favorite representative, State Representative Jamie Thompson. She was targeted as like the most, there was 2, but for Republicans, she was the most vulnerable Republican. And there was 1 Democrat that was equally as vulnerable as her. That meant the Dems were going at her as hard as they could to flip that seat. So trust me, when you're in a vulnerable district, the leadership looks at that and is like, we don't want to put this person in a position where they'll lose the race. And all this money targets the different, like they'll dump way more money in the opponent against a vulnerable incumbent than one that's rock solid. Once you get above like double digit point leads in the polls, you're considered pretty solid. You get up to like 15% and above, you're considered like bam. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Dogs Against ATF says there's breaking HPA news. I tagged you in it. Where'd you tag me? Over on X? By the way, make sure you're following 28EDU on X. Did you tag me on X? Let's see what's going on here. It's hard for me to break news in the middle of a live stream, right? Let's see here. Where did you tag me? Let me know, and I will try to find that if I see your chat here on X. Okay. I have an alert on X. Okay. Are you Dennis? And if you are, I don't think that's anything to do with the Hearing Protection Act. I think that has to do with a breaking court case that I was watching on my friend Stambo's stream tonight. Steven Stambolia. I think I know what this is. If you're talking about a post from, I think this is some other YouTuber here, I don't think that's exactly to do with the Hearing Protection Act specifically. Okay? I don't think so. Okay, that's you. Yeah. I do know what that is. And that is something, okay, that we may or may not have time to report on here tonight. But I don't think that's actually changing the Hearing Protection Act, if you know what I mean, right? But thank you for tagging me in. And hey, look, I appreciate all of you guys who give the channel leads. All right. I'll teach you what an attorney general's opinion is real quick, what this says, because I do have a lot of Michigan viewers. And then I think at this point, I'll just kind of go through and open it up to some more viewer Q&A since we did reach that super chat goal. And again, support's always appreciated because we don't do like these long corporate sponsor ad reads at the beginning of these videos. And there's nothing wrong with having a corporate ad sponsor. That's just not what this channel does. One more real quick thing, Mateo. We were talking about this earlier. I give the predicating information before I get to the confusing part because half the viewers needed more predicating information, but some got really mad because it was too much. Dude, like a lot of big YouTubers, you have to listen to like a 1 to 2 to 3 minute ad read to start the whole video, and mine never have that. That's why there's a new rule on this channel. Now, again, don't conflate. You can disagree. You can have a bad day. But no more whining's allowed on this channel at all. Any whiners, they're just gone because it's time for people to man up. And we have too many man children out there that are whining little female dogs. And that is the policy of this channel. It actually always has been. But I just wanted to remind some people that that's why I'm hanging out with all of you, which I see a lot of men in this chat, which is good. And that's what we need. We need people that actually have a little balls. And when they're whining, it's like, nah, you're whining. You're not allowed to hang out here anymore. Okay, so Attorney General's opinion, it's not just one of those things. Real quick here. King, what's happening? Says, like the stream. Thank you for reminding everybody. Make sure you give the stream a thumbs up. Because once in a while, somebody will give it a thumbs down. And then sometimes they'll even leave. But here's the thing. They always come back in the end. So don't forget to give the stream a thumbs up. It's a little support for the algorithm, right? So when Attorney General gives an opinion, it's because somebody asked them. It can be a senator. It can be a representative. There's different ways this can work. But these people asked, these lists of reps and senators back in 2011, Honorable Mark Meadows. I saw that and I had to stop. Mark Meadows, the one that used to be a United States representative and was Trump's chief of staff for a while. Yeah, that's a different Mark Meadows. I just saw the name and was like, oh, Mark Meadows. And there you go. Look at this. Lori DeVries. Very feminine lady. Nice looking lady. Trust me, I've met her many times in real life, and she is my friend. Dude, she mans up better than a lot of these whiners on YouTube. You know what I'm saying, Adam? No, like Lori's good, man. When like Jane Locke, did I see Jane Locke in here tonight? Where are you at, darling? If Jane Locke's in here, no, look, there's some good women in this state too. And I think these good women know what I mean when I say time to man up, all you little girly whiners, and don't whine on my channel. But okay, Attorney General's opinion isn't just like, in my opinion, whatever. Which when you say that, it loses all credit. No, when there's an ambiguity in law or some kind of conflict in law, and kind of like nobody knows what to do about it per se, the proper procedure is to ask the Attorney General of the state, say, well, in your opinion, what's this law mean? Now, and then the Attorney General will decide. They'll tell you, in my opinion, this is what the law reads. Now, this is actually somewhat precedent setting. Here's how I mean this. And again, not a lawyer, not giving you guys legal advice. There she is. There you are, darling. See, Jane Locke, Lori DeVries, they both know each other. These are all good people. Catherine Henry, she is in Florida. It's a lot warmer there right now. She is in Florida, but you guys know what I'm saying. But look, he puts an opinion out. This sets some legal precedent. Is it as strong as a law that's clear on its face? No. If they write a clear law that addresses this topic, it'll completely and utterly nullify that Attorney General's opinion. However, in absence of any law whatsoever, or if the law is super ambiguous, or if the law is like impossible to comply with, or the law just totally like misses a whole section of something, they will do this official request, and then the Attorney General will give them guidance. This is legal guidance, and this is supposed to be court case binding in the state of Michigan. I say supposed to be because the Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, every person has the right to keep and bear arms in defense of himself and the state. That's the supreme law of the land. That's supposed to be completely binding, yet here we are. The Second Amendment. That's supposed to be binding on the federal level. And then there's no doubt with the 14th Amendment, which incorporates the Bill of Rights into, and the whole Constitution, but incorporates the Second Amendment and all of its amendments into all of the states, the supreme law of the land, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means if you even had any gun control, even a scintilla of gun control, and I use that word for a reason, because one gun law would be way too much for the Second Amendment to allow, but even if you had a scintilla of one, just so little you could never even see it, that still doesn't meet the shall not be infringed muster, right? So that's why I'm always kind of like, well, because here's the thing. It's the way things are supposed to work. It's the way that say the law works, but then it's the way it really works. And we have rogue judges saying, look, it takes us 7 years. Just think about this. It'll take us 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to overturn something landmark with the 2A in the Supreme Court. Millions of dollars. If you're Trende Aragua, if you're MS-13, when the district judge doesn't rule on your case within 42 minutes, the Supreme Court comes through and sides with MS-13 and Trende Aragua. No, if you guys have, this isn't 2A related, but if you watch that, look, if you're a derelict, if you're a gangbanger, if you're literally a terrorist, and I say this because Trump has legally classified under his authority these people as terrorists. If you're certain terrorists that are jumping the border and not abiding by any of our laws because you're instantly a felon as soon as you enter illegally, then you have to get a hearing in 42 minutes or the Supreme Court will come in and bail you out. It doesn't work that way when you try to win a Second Amendment case. So with that said, this is supposed to have legal precedent, and judges are supposed to go by this in cases. Do they always, from what I understand? Actually, not always. But these liberal judges especially never follow the Constitution either. So look, there's what's supposed to be, and then there's what there really is. So I'll go to the very end here and read you what his opinion says and tell me what you guys think. And it still makes me worried about Michigan. Then I'm going to give you guys like a 1-minute clip from somebody else's video. So in case there's any doubters, and not you guys that are watching, but in case your friends are like, man, I doubt 2A Edu even knows what he's talking about at all, we'll give you the appeal to authority from a bigger YouTuber who came out much after I broke the news, because he probably watched my video, in my opinion, and then everyone will, then your friends will believe me more. But here's his opinion. In my opinion, therefore, the possession, manufacture, or sale of a firearm silencer is permitted in Michigan under MCL 750.224. But here's the criteria. if the person is licensed or approved to possess, manufacture, or sell such a device by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives as required by MCL 750.2243C, possession, manufacture, or sale of a firearm silencer by an unlicensed or unapproved person is a felony, punishable by up to 5 years imprisonment under MCL 750.224. So here's what he cleared up. Yes, silencer does fit underneath this long kind of ambiguous wording of items. So that was a big check. That was a win. Meaning the Attorney General, made this law a little more clear. I don't mean a win. A win would be to get rid of the law, but within this context, that was a win. Because at first it was like, dude, they were saying you couldn't even have a silencer in Michigan at a certain point because of how ambiguous this law was. And then the other big problem was licensed by the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States or the Secretary's delegates. You couldn't even get that license after around 2003, 2004-ish. So that made it impossible to comply with. So he clarified it and said, well, look, it just means you have to, right here, you have to be licensed or approved by the ATF. Now, words matter here. Licensed, that's pretty obvious. Approved is different than allowed. Approved and allowed are not the same word. And this is where people conflate really quickly when they don't think. If he would have said allowed, then that would mean, okay, they're allowed because, say, the Hearing Protection Act, goes through all the way like we want it to be. All right. If they remove them from the NFA, they would be de facto allowed. Then we wouldn't have this problem. But the law on its face definitely makes them illegal if the HPA with Section 2 passes. Look, guys, there's still time to fix this. That's why I'm bringing it up now. However, it doesn't say allowed. It says you have to be licensed or approved. To get approved for something, you actually have to apply for it, and you could either be approved or denied. Now, have your lawyer read this. If they're actually a real lawyer, have them get a hold of me if I'm wrong, because I am still talking to. There's one more lawyer I'm going to email this weekend. I don't expect that he's working weekends. He'll probably get a hold of me Monday. But I'm literally trying to prove my theory wrong before I keep going with some other plans I have to try to help out GOA and other people. Okay? So, and here's the problem, guys. And I don't mean this to be mean. I'm only being mean and kind of getting a little spicy tonight because people were trying to get me just to want to quit life and quit my YouTube channel with their nasty comments they left earlier. And Mateo took care of the real nasty ones. But you can still see all kinds of people that don't know their you-know-what from a hole in the wall. And people conflate things. It's like, no, this is laws here. Words actually matter. This guy's still saying possession, manufacture, or sale of a firearm silencer by an unlicensed or unapproved person is a felony. Well, look, if there's no license you can get, if there's no way you can get approved, then you're not licensed and you're not approved, and it would still be a felony. And this is actually a more lenient interpretation of the law for us than the law itself is. You guys see what I'm saying? Now, I did talk to an attorney. I'm not going to say his name because, again, he wasn't giving me legal advice. He's not giving you legal advice. He said the way he reads it in the law is if you have a tax stamp at all. If you own any tax stamp on any NFA item, then you are now licensed, because it doesn't say in the law or the AG's opinion that every item has to be licensed. You just have to be licensed. Now, this is state law. Federal law still applies right now. I want to be crystal clear. No legal advice in this video, and nothing's been repealed from the NFA as of yet. We're just very hopeful, optimistic, and excited that there's a good chance it will be. If, it's a big if, because there's some YouTubers running around saying, hey, look, it's already been repealed. You can just go screw your oil filter on tomorrow. I'm like, whoa, don't give people that advice. Now, if people want to do what they want to do, I'm not a cop. I'm not going to investigate you. I can't condone breaking laws on this stream. But look, some people just do whatever they do. I get it, literally. But if you want to be law-abiding and in compliance with the law, don't go screwing nothing on there willy-nilly right now. Nothing's been repealed. But if it is repealed, okay, you won't be able to get approval or a license from the ATF in Michigan. But, and look, I'm telling you guys this because it's 100% true. And there's a reason I cannot give you the name. And it's not because I'm being that guy. But from a well-respected attorney in Michigan said that, look, because the way this literally reads is, sale of, firearm silencer is permitted in Michigan under MCL 750-224 if the person is licensed or approved to possess, manufacture, or sell such a device by Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives required by MCL 750.224. So it could be construed that if you want a text stamp on any silencer, that you are now licensed for such a device in Section 224. Or if you own a text stamp for a machine gun, because that's also in Section 750.224. Now, the law on its face just says you have to be licensed, period. That would mean any text stamp. The way the Attorney General's opinion is read, could be read, not legal advice, that if you have a text stamp for anything in 750.224, okay, which would basically include silencers and machine guns, then you could, if the Hearing Protection Act goes through and they're repealed, you could buy as many as you wanted on a Form 4473. And because now you do hold a license and you have been approved for an item in 224. So just think about that. All right. All right. So this is the AG's opinion, which adds a little more clarity. It makes it where it's not literally impossible to own a silencer under current law now, which the law itself actually does. So that's been clarified. But let's go here. And I want to share my screen just for 1 second. And you guys can watch this video if you want later, the whole video. I will give credit to the author as we presented here. I don't watch the guy's channel because that's not my thing. But hey. All right. Okay. All right. This is from a YouTuber named Tom Grieve. He has 337,000 subscribers. That means he's about 4.5 times smarter than me. And his video has 10 times more views than mine does. So there's 10 times more accurate than mine. But dude, I was just saying, guys, I was being conservative with it because I never want to be clickbait. But I said in my video, I'm like, look, like, well, the title didn't say, I'm like, look, there might be like half a dozen, you know. But he's saying 16 breaking Fed law causes 16 states to ban suppressors. HPA triggers felonies in possible states. Now, there's already, I believe, 8 states where they're just banned, period. And as far as I know, in most of those states, I don't know if repealing the HPA helps you or not. Or I'm sorry, passing the HPA, repealing the NFA provision for silencers. I don't know if that helps you all or not. In most cases, probably not. I hope all of you still want it to pass, just like I want it to pass in Michigan more than anything, even though it might make it where I could never buy one again or buy one in the first place. It has been construed by some people that if I already own a tax stamp for one, I could keep doing it. But that's the thing. I don't have any tax stamps at all. So let's play this real quick. And you guys can watch the whole video for context. I'm just using a small portion for under fair use.
The number one argument I would have as a defense attorney is I am authorized. Look what Congress did. All right, so let's rattle through these states. This is going to be really fast. Category 1, permitted. This was a shocker to me. This is the best category you can be in. Connecticut. No one saw that coming. Category 2, it is illegal unless you are in compliance with federal law.
Well, that's
this
a pretty
good one to be in.
Yep.
This is a good one to be in. You've got the best legal arguments on your side. Yep. We've got Kansas, North Carolina, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. We've got your illegal unless you are registered or licensed. This is the Danger Will Robinson category. Alaska, Michigan, Montana, Ohio, Oregon, South Dakota, Washington State. And then finally, we've got the nebulous, wishy-washy authorized folks. We've got Georgia.
Wait a minute. Michigan was in bucket 3. by a big YouTuber. 2A EDU, you're clickbait. You have no. How come the other big YouTubers haven't reported on it? I'm like, oh, no. Hold on a minute. Once they all watch my video, they'll report on it.
Mississippi, Nevada. Now, I cannot stress enough, as always, this video is not legal advice. Check your local listings, check your local statutes, which I've provided down in the description box down below. I'm also going to see if I can make.
Okay. I don't know. That's all I wanted to show you guys. The guy's name's Time Grieve. I don't subscribe to him. I don't watch his videos, but he's obviously a very smart fellow. He might be a cool guy. He might be a jerk. I have no idea because I've never met him and don't watch much of his stuff. But since he's a really big YouTuber, he satisfies appeal to authority, right? You guys know I'm not being spicy towards my friends in here. I don't know if Mateo's gone to bed yet or not, but he can tell you all about it, man. They were trying to run me through the meat grinder. Some people were. That's okay, though. Now, like, dude, I'm hoping it's to the point where it's like, dude, this is going to be a nothing burger. I know. That's why we need people to be aware right now, to advocate, so a lot of these states don't end up in a jam. And I can't do much. I can just have my little small microphone here with my awesome audience that's like really good. And I'd rather have like really good people than a bunch of like dumb and crappy people. But hey, the few people I can reach, I'm trying to get you all to advocate. I know legislators on the state level. I'm talking to them about something that may or may not be able to help with this. I'm trying. All right. Let me take one more look here. We do have one more super chat, and I'm going to open it up to see if you guys have any questions. Is there anything I missed tonight? I don't know. You can ask me questions about whatever you want, though, really. I'll hang out for a few more minutes here with y'all. Bruno Bars with a super chat. Well, thanks, Bruno. I appreciate you, man. You've been hanging out with us the last few days. We've done a lot of content on this stream lately, and you've been hanging out. Thanks, man. I appreciate the support for sure. What questions do you guys have? The whole, like, what did I miss? Can you repeat everything you said? I can't answer that question. That's just too tough. What did I miss? Can you explain everything from the beginning again? No, we can't do that because we've covered a lot of stuff tonight. What's happening? A Steinman, channel supporter. I appreciate it, man. YouTube channel member. Thank you. Mitten Plinking, what's happening, my man? He says, you're doing great, 2AED. Thank you for your videos, and please keep up the good work. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. And I know me being like kind of spicy and just giving some of the haters what I think they deserve back. And I'm just trying to have fun, too. I actually kind of have a dry sense of humor where I think it's funny to, you guys know me well enough by now, right? But no, I wasn't begging for you guys to like lift my confidence up, but I know your compliments are heartfelt, and I really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you. All right. Do you guys have any questions? The only one, though, I literally can't answer right now is like, dude, what did I miss? Like, dude, like, I'll fill you guys in. If you want to know what you missed, we went really in depth on like this HPA, and I went through Michigan law because I know that more intrinsically, but like this applies to other states. That's the thing. It does apply to other states. Okay. And the problem is like, here's the thing. This is a state issue. You need to fix it in your state. Yes, I agree. But Michigan has a Republican controlled House with some rhinos in that too. Democrat-controlled Senate, Governor Whitmer. Michigan ain't going to repeal this law. And that's why I was like, man, how's the community so divided, People are like, well, sucks to be you. You deserve to have them banned for living in such a crappy state. And it's like, oh, man. Now, I do take it as a very gracious offer and a thing of, like, camaraderie when someone's like, brother, man, I hate to see you suffer. You're always welcome to come to Texas. We'd love to have you in the great state of Tennessee. Dude, South Carolina could really use a guy like you. Dude, when you come to Ohio, man, it's just across. Like, when you guys say that, I take that as very endearing. Trust me. Like, dude, we'd love to have you here. We could use 2A EDU in our state. That's awesome. That's you guys inviting me to come into your home state, which I think is an honor, right? But that's totally different than all the people. That's your own problem. If you don't like it, pick up and move. Somebody literally said, like, if you don't like it, pick up and move Michigan. So here's the crazy thing. I know people in the construction business. So I called my friend. He has the biggest cranes. I'm not even joking. The cranes he owns are so big that sometimes he has to travel across the state and even sometimes across the country because there's barely any cranes this big in the whole country. This is true. My friend has the biggest cranes, the best cranes around. I'm not going to say the name of the business, but you might already know who it is if you're in construction because not many people have the level cranes that he has. I said, hey, man, I need a favor. And he goes, what do you need, man? I said, I need a crane. He's like, for what? What are you doing that would need a crane? Because he knows I'm a small-time guy. I need the biggest crane you've got. He's like, yeah. You got the cheddar to get me to mobilize said crane? It's in the 6 figures if you're lucky. It's usually 7 figures when you're mobilizing. But I'm talking like I knew this guy owns like the biggest category crane in the state of Michigan. So I'm like, no, here's the thing. I don't have any money, but I need to satisfy this troll on YouTube. And he's like, really? This is a multimillionaire too. I'm like, I need to use your crane that's big enough to pick up the whole state of Michigan. Because to satisfy this one viewer on YouTube that said, I declare you must move the whole state of Michigan. He didn't tell me to move from Michigan. You follow me, guys? He literally said, like, I demand you, like, you must move the state of Michigan. And I'm like, I'm going to need a big crane. But here was the problem. The guy I talked to, my friend, he says, I don't have a crane big enough to move the state of Michigan, man. That ain't going to happen. Then he goes, are you serious? I'm like, of course I'm serious. Oh, pulled my hair out. That's why I'm wearing this hat. There's no hair left under here anymore. And I'm like, dude, like a YouTuber declared that I had to. So I have to, like, I'll sell everything. He's like, dude, you would have to sell everything to move this crane even 1 mile. It's so expensive, but I still can't pick up the state of Michigan and move it. So, you know, it's kind of like that. Like, whew. All right. I gave you guys time to ask some questions here. Dude, we need Section 3 and 4 of the Hearing Protection Act, like big time. I'm being told by people in the know that, like, Section 4 is going to be a tall ask, man. But I like the big ask, though. I do like that tactic. We need the whole thing. Oh, you can't have it all. Well, we need the first 6 sections. You can't have that either. All right, the first 5? The first 4? Hell no. Dude, you told me no 8. All right, fine. We'll give you Section 3. And I hate that. I don't compromise. I don't like to compromise on anything. But this is Capitol Hill. So, you know, ask for 4 when you're calling. I've been told, though, it ain't going to pass the bird rule. And, like, I've been told by people that want this full HPA to go through just as much as all of you do. And they're like, yeah, but there's really probably no way it can pass. See, we're run by a Senate parliamentarian and a dead senator that used to be in a group that begins with a K and it ends in a K. All right. And we're being run by a rule named after him. Think about this. Through the Senate parliamentarian. And then if you remember the manager's amendments, see, I thought it was. I gave false credit. I'll be honest. I made a mistake in the live stream. Of course, you're going to make mistakes in a 12-hour live stream. I'll tell you one that I made. I said Representative Cloud gets credit because it was his amendment. Well, he was. The Cloud amendment for the HPA. This is not Clyde, but Cloud, C-L-O-U-D. All right. He put the amendment in, and it was registered as amendment number 487, and it passed the Rules Committee. So I'm like, well, this is the one that was voted on. We're getting the HPA in the House. It must have been Cloud's. No, I was actually wrong. This is me admitting I was wrong in this. Not that it really changes anything in the end, but still. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. He was on, yeah, that's the one they all voted on, but it was the manager's amendment. The managers were the one that actually amended and actually put it into HR 1, which has now become House Bill 1. I'm like, wait a minute. So what has more precedent? Like, what trumps what? The duly elected representative or the managers? The ones in the back room. Who are they? I don't know. If you do know, you're probably not allowed to talk about it. But look, The manager's amendment has the most precedent. So we live in a country now where we're run by managers and parliamentarians for the most part. And I'm like, well, can't they just fire the parliamentarian? And they're like, no, there's actually a parliamentarian's rule that you can't fire the parliamentarian. I'm like, oh, dang it. We almost had them. I mean, this is how this even works, though. These deep states, they make rules that say, remember when the ATF made that rule? And in the rule, they said this can't be challenged in court. We covered it on the channel. It was one of the gun control rulings. And in the rule, they said, and this you can't even sue us on this rule. Well, from what I understand, the parliamentarian has made it against the rules to even get rid of their rules. And I'm like, okay. Uh-huh. Durkey09 at 28 EDU. Is there any chance this just goes under the radar? And most red states just ignore the NFA requirements and just treat them as firearms, i.e. 4473. There's always a chance. I wouldn't want to play with that risk. If you're talking about Michigan, though, Michigan doesn't qualify as that type of red state. Here's kind of how this generally works. So it's possible what you're saying, but not probable. Most states that are red enough, they'll hurry up and pass a real quick bill through their state legislature to fix this for you guys that quick. That's most likely what will happen. If they're more like purplish or not quite so red, I wouldn't count on it. So, yeah, there's a chance to answer your question on its phase. I wouldn't rely on that. You know what I mean? Is it true, Andrew Westgate, is it true Colorado outlawed AR-15s? Man, I'll be honest with you. I haven't kept up on that issue like I should. I'd like to keep up on it all, but I'm not like a professional YouTuber. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. But I wanted to read it out loud because maybe the chat can help. Help him out, chat, if you guys live in Colorado or you know for any other reason. Woody Wood, did they ever vote on the suppressors? Yeah, the House did, and they've passed Section 2 of the Hearing Protection Act. So the lower chamber of Congress has repealed part of the NFA for the first time in 91 years. I say the lower chamber. It's not law yet. The law has not passed. It has not been repealed as a matter of fact. Just the lower chamber did pass the bill that removes silencers. And I keep saying silencers. Everyone says suppressor. Use suppressor in parlance if you want. Silencer is the legal name. You won't find a law anywhere that doesn't refer to as silencer. All right. Maybe some will use suppressor as well, but silencer is the legal classification. And that's a whole other funny thing I was talking to a friend about. A lot of people are giving me lip lately. They're like, stop calling it a silencer. You need to call it a suppressor. It's not silent. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Hold on. We're talking about stuff that's literally a matter of law here. And it literally says in the law, right? Like, and this isn't like anyone's opinion. This is just the facts. And it doesn't really matter what anyone wants it to say. It just does say it. Say, it says silencer here. It says silencer here. It says silencer everywhere that it's germane. In Michigan law, in the United States law, it doesn't use the word suppressor even once because that's not a legal classification. Okay, it's just not. Yeah, but they don't actually make them silent. I'm like, well, except for when they actually do. You guys know that, right? In some cases, they just suppress the sound a little bit, muffle it a little bit. In some cases, they muffle so little just due to the high velocity, high power of the round, and or inefficiency of the can, or both. There's all these combinations. It can still not even be hearing safe, especially when it comes to rifles. In many, many instances, you still need that ear pro, even with your so-called suppressor, your legally called silencer. So yeah, it is fair to say in many times it does not silence. But there's this weird thing going on lately where people are like, stop using the word silencer. We have to call it suppressor. Dude, we're talking about like laws right now and bills and attorney general's opinions. You use the words that are applicable, right? Like, if I'm sitting there and they're like, well, discuss like your favorite song, I'm not just going to say, gold. What song is gold? Oh, no, that's my favorite color. Like, You don't just use a different word, because words are actually the only thing that matters when it comes to laws. But there's another misconception out there. And that is that, and trust me, I'm not ripping on you for saying suppressor. I promise you I'm not. It just reminded me of it, because it's like, well, silencers, more commonly referred to as suppressors. And you guys can call them suppressors all day. Please do. I literally have the word suppressor in the title of this video to prove that I'm not opposed to it at all. None. But there's been some pushback, and they're like, they don't even make it silent. You know? It's like, no, but except for when they actually do. No, there literally are silencers that make the round itself literally silent. I shot a 300 blackout before, where they put in like a firing pin dampener to try to muffle it. You could barely hear the firing pin drop, and when you pulled the trigger, you couldn't even hear that. It's just when you let the trigger reset, you could hear it. A bolt action 300 blackout that was literally just tricked out like 4th of July. Like, I don't even want to know how much money they had into it. Pulled the trigger, and you literally didn't hear anything, like at all. You heard the firing pin drop. I've also shot 22 silencers that were literally silent. Now, is there technically some type of meter that could pick up the audible sound? Sure, but that's just getting involved in pedantics. And I'm not being pedantic right now. No, just like you're outside, like whatever type of just ambient noise there always is in the world, unless you're in a vacuum or a soundproof room. Maybe if you were in a soundproof room, you could hear it. I don't know what would happen if you fired the firearm in a literal vacuum. So the experts in the chat can chime in on what that would mean. But you get my point. If you're just like outside with normal, just like there's always noise around you. I have experienced several firearms where all I heard is parts within the firearm acting or interacting with each other. And I heard zero report from the bolt leaving the barrel. So just wanted to throw that out there. That before you go bullying people, not that you guys do this, but before your friends are bullying people, you know, like suppressors never make it silent except for when they actually do. And there are some people with rigs out there that actually are. And I know a lot of you guys are very smart and are into this stuff, so you can confirm what I'm talking about if you want, or you can refute it if you want. Randy Smith, what's happening, man? How you doing? He says, you have been a very busy man this week, especially that all-nighter. Oh, geez. Well, there were really 2 if you think about it in a row. He says, loved your humor that night. Thanks for how you do. Well, man, you got to try to have fun doing this. And I've had fun hanging out with you all tonight. Oh, is there a new Attorney General's letter? Technically, an approved 4473 should constitute an approval. Okay, if there's something from the Attorney General, maybe it is the one that the gentleman from earlier tagged me in, okay? I wasn't totally dismissing it. I'm like, I think this is something I already know about, but it might not be. And I might have to go through and if there's breaking news that's happened since the stream came out, I mean. Oh, you're saying this Attorney General's letter. Okay, I got you, my man, right here. Okay. Okay. 4473 may pass muster for this. It may. It may. I'm not sure. It may. Because then you're approved, since you have to get approved on a 4473. Yeah, it may. That may be enough. You're talking about this Attorney General Shooty. I got you. I thought you were saying breaking news, Pam Bondi, Attorney General. Because we had another viewer that said there was some certain breaking news about the HPA. I think I understood what you're saying now. Yeah, could be. And I hope that's all it comes down to. I hope. You know? I don't think the 4473 could ever be construed as a license. You know what's tough, though? But an approval? Yeah. Here's the interesting part, too, though. Dana Nessel's the AG, right? So if that becomes, and I hate these words, I'm just going to use it because that's the words they would use. We found a loophole for these guys still to get their silencers, their suppressors. Nessel could come out and say, well, in my opinion, his opinion's wrong, and here's now my opinion. Don't forget that. a clear law has more precedent, setting than an attorney general's opinion. Problem with the attorney general's opinion is, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm under the belief that one attorney general can just override another attorney general's opinion. I hope I'm wrong on that. And I tell you guys when I think something to be true, but I don't know it for sure. Here's the interesting part about it, though. You can manufacture a Title I firearm yourself. You can make it yourself. In Michigan, you can transfer Title I firearms, meaning pursuant to the GCA, not NFA, among CPL holders, because we have this universal background checks now in Michigan, but CPL holders are exempt. So if that was the case, it could make it where it would actually still limit people in the state of Michigan. If this was the case, guys, and we'd have to see how this would be looked at, because we don't know what version of the HPA is going to pass. But I still have major concerns, right? Because when you say 4473, that obviously implies a gun shop. What if you were trying to transfer, sell, otherwise, transfer a silencer just to a friend with a CPL face-to-face in the state of Michigan? And you don't want to go to the gun shop because you don't want it to be run through the system like that. And look, I'm not giving legal advice, but I don't even know, but from what I understand, if the HPA passes in the way we're hoping it will, right, then you'd be able to presumably make your own at home, right? And if state law doesn't conflict with that, transfer it to other people and keep it out of the 4473 system. Now, there might be something written in it very specifically where you have to go through the 4473 system. Here's the crazy part. Don't forget this. It might be where this is all a moot point because they might still stay on the NFA and just have the tax stamp reduced to 0. And clearly you can tell, and I'm not quoting anyone from the GOA, just go look at their post that I shared on my X account. They said as a backup, the tax would just be reduced from 200 down to 0. So the Bird rule might completely screw us to the point where all it does is takes them down from $200 down to 0 and still stay on the NFA. So there's some things that work here, right? But you know what I'm saying, right? I would say certainly in that case, it would nix 2 out of the 3 things. Being able to transfer it to, again, a CPL holder in the state of Michigan. Or manufacture your own, make your own. M. Gabriel, what's happening? Says Sapenen in here. I'm not sure what that means, man. Maybe you can clarify that for me or help me out. Sapenen in here. I don't know. Dude, I have heard about the bioengineered ticks. Yes, I have. King NN. Yes, I actually watched the Tucker Carlson episode with a woman that was exposing all this that used to work with them. Is that are you talking about the same thing? Yes. Okay. Any more questions? Members of the Senate Finance Committee? Yes. I had mentioned a couple of names like Crapo, Daines, and Cruz. I know those are 3 of the most powerful people in this process. Likely, yes. And I did read a super chat that was something to do with that earlier tonight on this stream. What's happening, Vince? How you doing, man? In Colorado, you can still buy them, but only after completing BS training programs that don't exist yet. Okay. So that might be the answer. Yeah. All right. Word Up Russia says, I know something was passed up there lately. Dragon Man's daughter was trying to gain awareness on the bill. All right. What's up, Corey Smith from California? How you doing, man? Yeah, that's crazy. Jeez. Well, Ari Iron Miner, we're always being played by this government. No, look, guys. This is a big victory that part of the Hearing Protection Act has passed. The United States House of Representatives, we're one step closer. As long as we can keep fighting to getting them repealed from the NFA as much as possible, as much as what can get past the bird rule, the whatever. The Michigan GOP probably won't get together to do that. No, you're probably right. What's up, Harry Grumley? How you doing, man? Nice to see you. Yeah, once in a while they're like super silent. I'm not saying it's easy, and I was never trying to say that the majority of suppressed guns are truly silent, but some of them, for all intents and purposes, are actually, which is kind of crazy. Lori DeVries, we've been spoiled by 2A EDU this week. You guys are probably getting sick of me by now. Ooh. All right. Yeah, I did hear about that. Dogs Against ATF. The Trump administration argued the NFA is constitutional because it's a modest burden, not a ban. I know. I told you guys I was watching my friend Steven Stambolia's live stream earlier, listening to it while I was cutting grass earlier. And yeah, I heard all about it, man. All right, let me get one or two more questions and I will go through. Robot Andrew, don't you have to submit the design and make your own? So with zero text, you'll be screwed for experimenting with your own ideas. That may be true too. Yeah. And thanks for reminding me, guys. Everything I just said, this is if it passes all the way through and gets signed by Trump. No, right now you can't just make your own and transfer it to a friend. No. This is all if the Hearing Protection Act completely passes through, right? That's a good point you brought up. Dude, we have such a weird spaghetti like mess salad of laws between states, the federal government. And I'll just end with this. I think it's wrong, and it's a shame that by repealing some of the most draconian gun control ever, literally, and 91 years old, that it could somehow accidentally or unintentionally actually screw people over in certain states. Yeah, that sucks. That's terrible. Hopefully there's fixes for this. Some states are worded a little bit differently than others. And again, it's not like we don't know what's going to happen. It's just right now there's a potential for an issue, okay? And as of right this minute, the current HPA inevitably will ban from some states. That's basically what I was getting at. In some states, hopefully not yours, hopefully not mine, hopefully none of them. Hopefully there's workarounds. Hopefully it can all be fixed. And I am looking forward to that. And regardless of anything, man, full steam ahead. We need it to pass the Senate with Section 3 added, with the Short Act added, and hopefully the Senate realizes they might have to tweak things a little bit to make sure that everybody's okay. You know what I mean? They're not unintentionally screwing people over while trying to be cool and don't want that. So that's all. I wanted to raise some awareness and clarify a few points that I couldn't get into in my very short 14-minute video I did earlier, which is short. I could do hour videos if I wanted to, but I like to shorten them up once in a while. Paul Bennett, thanks, man. Take it easy. And Richard Denny, good night, man. Thanks for the support. Good night, Lori. Good night, Jane. Live life. What's happening, man? How you doing? I know, he says, I'm never sick of someone's fight for our freedom. Just say, we all have to. This was admitted by the people who passed the NFA. There was a two-way workaround, and it's in the transcripts leading up to 1934. I know. And it's always been unconstitutional. That's why we need to take chunks of it out ASAP here. And Hey, these are exciting times. I'm very optimistic. Very optimistic. Just wanted to bring up some issues and hopefully they can get squashed. Hopefully there's some little teeny loophole workaround where it's not an issue, right? That's what I'm hoping. That's why we bring this up and talk about it. Because it might be like, well, hold on. Maybe, and this was even said by a friend of mine on the phone. He's like, hold on. Maybe they could just literally, like, since the ATF is supposedly going to be all about this, we'll see. Even though you get mixed signals, because it's being reported that Trump's AG just came in and said the NFA is constitutional because there's no burden. So they go back and forth. But if what I'm hearing is true, maybe the ATF could have a fillable PDF on their website that's anonymous. Not that I would believe any of that, where you could go in there and just fill it out and print your own license. Somebody literally said that as an idea. I don't know. Doesn't sound like the best idea to me, but maybe there's ways that, like as somebody said earlier, can this slide under the radar? I hope so. I hope so. But it's a conversation that should be had, and we should bring this up so smart people can try to think of ideas together and or put pressure on the lawmakers if that's what they need to do. Right? I think we're all on the same page. Good night, Logan. Take it easy, man. Thank you for the support. And who else have we got in here? Taco Hitman. Fight, fight, fight. Wolf. Wolves, wolf. Carry on. Indeed, good sir. Gort. How you doing, Gort? Nice to see you, man. And I thought I saw... There he is. Bill Alexander. What's happening, dude? He says, great chat and content as usual. Keep the faith and have a great weekend, Patriots. And stay dangerous. Yes. Have a good Memorial Day. Keep those in your memory. And realize why. I mean, it's okay to say you celebrate Memorial Day, but I don't really look at it as a celebration as much as, you know, trying to remember the fallen. Who fought in good wars, who fought in bad wars, but a lot of them died trying, and a lot of them were very good people, right? You're welcome, Harry. Boslinger, and the form you fill out for a gun be what is used as registration. Oh, I don't see. There's no ATF registry, right? That's the thing, you know. Registered with. This says licensed or approved. There's no ATF registry for non-NFA items, right? That's the thing. That's why these are things to think about. There's no now I know there's de facto registries, there's illegal registries, but there's no like, see, some states say they have to be registered. That's the verbiage. Another state's going to say things like licensed or approved. So there's, yeah, it can be a bit complicated, but definitely something to think about because there could be some potential pitfalls. All right, guys. I've had a good time hanging out tonight. Good time hanging out with you all quite a bit this week. Very optimistic. And hey, when the Senate goes to hopefully pass, right, the Hearing Protection Act, let me know. And maybe we can do some more marathon streams then and hang out, right? All right. I'll talk to you all again soon. Thanks for watching and have a good one.